ask. First of all, I want to talk about your book. So this I thought was interesting. You come from a background. Actually, talk a little bit about your experience in your financial field. How it led to a
Sure,
book.
sure. Well, so we'll go back pretty early. I got an undergraduate degree from a small school here in Arkansas in economics. Then went to work, just kind of lucked into a job at an investment bank. Started in the brokerage accounting department there, and that sounds more fancy than it is. Basically, when you would transfer securities between accounts, and the cost and information wouldn't transfer over, we would go in and like do data entry and manually key in stuff. So I started at the bottom rung at an investment firm. Worked there for, gosh, 11 years. Worked my way up. The last, I think, 3 years I was there. I was running a trading desk. Had 8 traders that were working for me. We were trading all different types of securities. But the whole time I was doing this, I got my MBA, and then just always had a passion for personal finance. I would go work 60, 70 hours a week and then come home and be watching YouTube videos and reading blogs and stuff on economics, personal finance. And so it's just always been a passion of mine.
And
What?
so you took. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go. I'm gonna wait a minute.
So you took all of that and you began mostly. If I'm correct, looking at the timeline, you started content on YouTube first before TikTok, right?
I think so. They're both around the same time, like
Right.
September or October last year, sometime around there.
Right. And so that I assume most of the success you found was through TikTok, like a lot of creators nowadays.
100%. I mean, YouTube is pretty saturated at this point, and YouTube is significantly harder to produce a video over there of quality, and
Right.
there's a lot steeper learning curve from what I've found. Much better organic growth, as both of you know, on TikTok right now.
It's
Right,
awfully
for sure.
nice to focus in all of your energy on 1 minute too.
Yeah.
Creatively, it's actually a pretty cool exercise I've found.
And
I think it made me
Yeah.
better.
Well, it does, and the interesting thing is, once you get to where you can jam everything into, 15 to 30 seconds or a minute at most, it then almost becomes difficult to try to expand out and go longer into,
Yes.
Oh,
like a
yeah.
10, 15-minute YouTube over the same topic.
Yep.
Because you get so used to that the beat that you have to hit on TikTok.
Oh,
yeah, you get trained into it for sure.
TikTok has given a lot of amazing opportunities. That is for sure. I think a lot of people are running into the issue now where they've never had fame ever, and now everyone can be famous. You look at the 60s, for you to become famous, it took you hundreds of hours of work and tons of contacts you had to know, and now it's pretty much anyone. It's better than Vine was, better than Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
It's crazy, but it's funny because I had no, like, I didn't even post on social media when I was working for the investment firm, because there's so many compliance rules and regulations you've got to be concerned about, and so I just didn't post nothing personal,
Right.
nothing investment related, didn't post anything. And I remember like the second or third post that I put on TikTok, it got like 800,000 views. I had 16,000 followers. And I wanted to throw up. I was like, oh my God. 'Cause I grew up in
Jesus.
my hometown had 10,000 people in it when I was growing up. So
Wow.
16,000 followers. And of course, I didn't know anything about social media. I thought when you have 16,000 followers, everything you post immediately goes to 16,000 people.
Right.
Obviously, that's not quite the case, but
Yeah.
I was super green coming in. I'm still learning all the time.
That's wild. Yeah, I think I posted well over 100 videos before anything happened.
Did you really?
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, that happens. That happens.
Well,
Like,
you got to remember too, on the platform back then. This is, September, October of last year, a little over a year ago.
yeah,
There was like 3, maybe 4 people on the app making any type of like content related to finance or economics or
Yeah.
anything. So it was super new on the platform. I mean, it was, my For You page was just like high school girls dancing, and like that's all that was on the app
Yeah,
at the time.
yeah.
So I was definitely I think an early adopter on that.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean,
we
it
were
comes in
talking.
waves for sure.
We were talking before we got on the call about like the people that are reaching out. Is there anything you can talk about of interesting people that have reached out? Because I mean, it's to me, it's just wild the amount of different people that I'm meeting.
I'd say that, of course, you've got, like brands. I've had some pretty big brands reach
Mhm.
out to me, which I don't like doing sponsored posts all that much. I just don't, I don't like pushing stuff on people, but brands that reach out, I get a few a week on those. I had a data scientist reach out to me. I was working on a project where I was trying to replicate return results that a hedge fund was getting, and data scientists reached out to me and started building this program. Trying to think of other content creators. I made some really good friends to this, like people that
Mhm.
I never would have met before, like wildly successful people through here. So I don't really have I haven't had I think Casey Neistat followed me. That's been my one celebrity follow that
Wow,
I've seen come through.
that's
Um,
something.
I bet.
I'd sent him a DM and he never responded, and so but we're still friends on that.
It's a
I'm
doorway
I
that's
got
open.
I got followed by rainbows. I feel like I'm thrilled. I'm like, all right, done. She does the hacking stuff. She's into programming
Okay.
and hacking. I was like, hell
Uh-huh.
yeah. All right. I've made it.
But the bad thing about TikTok is you don't know, or at least I don't know how to tell who follows me. Like I'll stumble across an account that has like 5 million followers, and
I
Yeah.
found a trick. I found a
We
trick.
found it. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is how you do it. Is you, instead of going through all of your followers, because
Mhm.
there's just so many,
Sure.
I mean, I want to go through all of them. I try to, but it's just it's an immense number. uh, and it gets overwhelming. So what you do is you go find the people that you are interested in, and then you go click on the people that they follow,
It
and
says
then you
follow
scroll
back.
through that shorter list, and you look for the one that says follow back, and that's somebody
Yeah,
that's following you that you might be
I
interested in meeting.
yeah, I've done that, and I've found some people. That I found an account today. It's like this professor at USC has 2 million followers, and it's like, oh my God, I never even seen this guy, and
Yeah, I
to
had a
follow him
couple that
back.
shocked me. I was like, wait, this person was following me and I didn't know?
Yeah.
Because you
I've
just
had
can't
some
tell.
big people on TikTok follow me, and it's not until someone tags me,
Uh,
and then I go to look at that person's profile, and it's like, oh, you duetted me. Oh, you follow me.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
There should be
nuts.
better tools for things like that. That's something I want to work on
Really
creating.
should.
Yeah, I think it's really useful to know who's connected because I mean, you can get awesome things like now here you are on the podcast.
There you
Can
go.
I change direction?
Mhm.
Hard turn. Let's try something here. Let's go with this one first. I've got a couple questions written up here. What are your thoughts on Chamath Palihapitiya?
Palihapitiya. I don't know. I think he is extremely well spoken. Um, I think he's either going to be a tremendous, all-time great investor, or
Mm.
he's just a completely full of BS. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously,
It's
he's had
hard
a
to
ton
tell.
of success when it comes to
Well, he's
like
literally a professional
Facebook.
poker player, right? If you could tell, you'd be bad.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's interesting that success he's had. Obviously, like CNBC and the news outlets love him because
Right.
he's good to put on TV.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope he is like a great investor. I put a few $1,000s into one of those SPACs that he did, and I think I'm still up in that right
And
now. But
that was my next
just kind of
question.
it's like a yeah. So the open door is an
Yeah.
interesting concept. Basically, like instead of hiring a real estate agent, they come in and they just buy your house from you, fix it up, and then try to resell
Mhm.
it. Which I think is interesting because my own situation, I've bought 2 houses, so I've sold one. The process is an absolute nightmare. I hate it. So I can absolutely see, like, if I go to sell my house now, I'm gonna run it through like an open door or something if
Yeah.
there's an option available, just to get a bid on it, see what they would offer
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And if I can get, within a couple of percentage points of what I think I could get to sell it on the open market, I'd probably pull the trigger on it.
Yeah.
Um,
For the people who don't know, think you could explain like what's a SPAC and why does it relate to Chamath?
Sure. Yeah. So a SPAC is a what is it? Special acquisition company.
A thing, a special purpose acquisition company. There it is.
Special purpose. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it's a blank check company. So traditionally, what you would have is you'd have like a normal business that has regular operations. They would go through an IPO process, and this is a very intensive, regulatory intensive. You have to open up your books. There's a lot involved, a lot of cost involved. You got bankers coming in. What we've seen now, this happened historically, but it's really picked up in 2020. Is these SPACs? They're basically blank check companies. So they go public as a company that really doesn't have any operations. They just have a set number of dollars in the fund. They go public, and then they acquire a private company, effectively bringing them public and circumventing the IPO process. And we've seen tons of investors, even what's the politician, Paul Ryan?
Yeah, it's gotten super popular. There's a bunch of
Paul,
people doing it now.
you could think like maybe Kevin O'Leary and some other people have gone in on. I mean,
Yep.
not even traditional investors, politicians and things are creating these SPACs just because it's an easy way to go public, and you can make a whole lot of money on it. And the fear is that you stick retail investors with the company that hasn't gone through all the proper due diligence.
Yeah.
But the upside is that they don't have all the cost and regulatory burden.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also in on the IPOB, the open door. I also got some shares of that myself. And two of the things that interested me about him is that it looks like he's all in on the concept where he reserved IPO-A all the way to Z. He has all of the ticker symbols. So he's apparently got a plan. And the other is I don't think he takes fees. And most people that make SPACs go public, they charge a big fee for it. I could be wrong on that, but I think he mostly is focusing on the investment itself, which
honestly,
lends
if you
me
can get
to be more
people
interested.
Yeah.
Oh, and he likes to fancy himself as like a Robinhood type. He's going to democratize investing for the common man. He wants to be the next Warren Buffett. How Warren Buffett is like, the legendary investor that's just like feels like it's your grandpa, and everybody loves him. I mean, effectively, that's what he wants to be, and 40 or 50 years.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I'm gonna take another hard left turn, and then Brandon, you take it away, and we'll see which direction we go.
I'll take a right turn.
All right.
Yeah, we'll see if we go in a circle.
So, what's the difference between a habit and a goal, and why does it matter in money?
Habits and goals. Okay, so this concept, reference to the book that I wrote, and what I talked about in there. Read a book in January, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's like a New York Times bestseller. I've been seeing it everywhere. And the concept is that if you have a goal, then you've got something that you're working towards. You're trying to use motivation to get to it. And then once you achieve the goal, you're left with nothing else. And often we have like big major goals that we're working towards, and it's hard to get motivated day to day to work towards it. I was arguing that you should set up habits that you have, like daily habits, that will effectively drive you towards your goal, as opposed to just trying to focus on the goal. So it automatically happens. So you think about like brushing your teeth in the morning. You don't have to think about it. You just get up and you do it. And you build enough of these habits that trend you in the right direction of what you're wanting to do. Then, that's the way you can make lasting change. And there's no like, okay, I've accomplished this goal. I'm done. What do I do now? It can be a lifetime of a change.
Yeah, a lot of folks that I've been talking to actually have reached a level of success, and now they're going, well, what about now? Because they were oriented, which yeah, goals can get you to a degree, it can get you to some places, but yeah, there does come a point where there's, you get a lot of questions at the end of the goal.
Reach the mountaintop, and then there's nothing left to work towards. Assuming that you can stay motivated. I mean, it's been a struggle for me. I think my entire life, I have these huge lofty goals.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I work towards it for a week or two, and then something else
Yep.
flashy comes along, and my goals kind of change, and so I'm constantly not getting any progress without being habitual about things.
Yeah, a very
Agreed.
close business partner of mine from a while back said something that stuck with me, is that the people who climbed Mount Everest, once you reach that peak, start creating mountains in their own head. And it's a two-way street where one, they create mountains that are unclimbable, but they also create mountains for other people to climb with them. And so I think part of the problem of getting to the peak of whatever your goals were is you're going to either be swamped by the new mountain you created, which is impossible to climb, there's nothing more I could do to get there, or you start building a new challenge that no one else has ever done, right? Once you have billions of dollars, what's left? Except to make new challenges. You're making the next mountain. I think that's some pretty solid advice.
Yeah, it's challenging. And like in the aspect of like losing track of what you're working on the like the flip side of it. Yeah, I've dealt with that as well a lot, and I think some of the best things in my life have happened because well, I'm by default a dreamer. So like you described, the lofty goals. It's like that's my default operation mode. And I've been setting them aside in a weird way and then getting closer to them as a result, where I've been just focusing on my day to day, and I think it's a really big deal. I liked that part of your book because I think it's something that a lot of people they kind of miss the mark on it.
Yeah, and that was stolen directly from James Clear, and I credited him there in the book. And the way he kind of frames it is, think about the type of person that has achieved your goal. What would they do? And then build your habits around that being the type of person. What would the type of person that has lost 50 pounds? What do they do? And you build habits, and basically you have a trigger that causes you to do the habit. So every night you eat dinner, and then immediately you go run or whatever you're working towards. Have some trigger that causes that habit.
Yeah, love it. Brandon, you got something? I got plenty of questions, so
Oh, I'm so ready. I've got my
all
right
right, go
turn.
for it.
So, I've got a question for you, Dustin. You talk a lot about how marketing plays you, right? How things can be deceiving, and how those that are the best investors are those that can think long term about the implications of their actions. In your book, there's a line that I love, and it's a little metaphor about an invasive wildflower getting into a field and how it will double its area. So in 6 weeks, covers the entire field. So when is half the field covered? Can you explain a little bit more about how the idea of compounding and exponential growth is lost on new investors?
I think just naturally we're all inclined to think in a linear fashion. I mean, everything we do is linear. You just look at like COVID cases, how people couldn't wrap their minds around how we're back in like March and April. People were saying, well, there's a lot more flu cases every year than what we've got right now with COVID. And it's like, well, but the COVID cases are growing exponentially. That means they're going to keep growing at a lot faster rate. And so that was an example that was pulled from Thinking Fast and Slow, which is a book by Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winning psychologist. And basically, if you ask people, when is the field going to double, and you put pressure on them to answer quickly, most people are going to say it's going to take 3 weeks or 3 weeks to get halfway there, and then another 3 weeks to reach the full field. When in actuality, it's going to be 5 weeks, because if it already doubled by week 5, then it's not going to double again and fill up the field. It's
Right.
going to be 5 weeks to get there. And so that's the concept, and I think it plays out in finance. It plays out going back to habits. I mean, if you are creating habits, you're growing by just 1% a day. It's not going to end up being 365% at the end of the year. It's like, in that math before, it's like 2,400% or something, at the end of the year.
Right. Yeah. So the other part of that growth is about how marketing plays you, and it's the one of your most popular videos has to do with how a movie theater can easily upsell you with a medium drink that's 25 cents less than the largest one. It's another great example of how the modern marketing tactics, which is my field, really prey on those ideas that we think that, oh, this is not that far away from that, therefore that is better than this. And it's like the HDMI cable on the TV, how I'll drive 4 miles even though it's double because I don't want to pay double, right? It's the cost fallacies. So what do you think is the best way in your day-to-day life to acknowledge those things and deal with them?
I think just know about them as best you can. I mean, even knowing about them, it's difficult not to see it and think it. I mean, I would fall for that too.
Right.
If I knew that a cord was half the price across town, I'm going to be tempted to drive across town because it's half. But if I'm buying a car and I can get it $10 cheaper across town,
Right.
you're not even going to think about driving across town. And so I think we all have these biases that naturally trip us up. I think marketers and salespeople are the best, probably the best psychologists in the world. I mean, they know what can trick you in order to get you to buy.
Right.
The Economist ran 2 ads several years ago. They ran one option. It was a online and they ran online version and a print version. Sorry, they ran online and print, or you could just get print.
Mm-hmm.
2 options. And most people just went with the butchering this. Anyways, they inserted a 3rd option, and it completely changed the percentages of the way that people behaved. And you see this replicated over and over again.
You're talking about the choice thing, right? Where it's like you put 20 choices on the end of a grocery store aisle, and you get mediocre sales, and then you put 3 choices.
That's another one. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it's when it comes to investing, that's the most common question I get in my DMs is like, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, I've done 50 videos on how to start, how to get started. There's other creators, there's dozens of creators that have told you exactly how to get started in investing. It's just there's so much. Everybody's got a little bit of different spin. They just don't know what path to go down, so they just kind of freeze up and do nothing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I made some of those videos myself, and I started to make more of them, and then I realized, oh, this is actually a rabbit hole. You could just make videos on how to start investing, and never satisfy that need fully, because what usually gets people past that is kind of that diving in sort of thing, and that usually comes from the inspiration of people actually living the experiences.
If they follow you down the rabbit hole, though,
right?
They've got to follow you down the rabbit hole. I mean, a lot of people just want a quick. They want it in a TikTok. How do I do everything? In 15 seconds, and you just can't. You gotta step in and go.
Yeah,
it's
and that's
tricky.
one of the things. That's one of the things where the fallacy of paper trading comes in. This is something I'm just learning about. I've had so many people. I've started off where they're like, I really learn about the stock market, and so I'm like, oh yeah, I use Webull for paper trading. I think it's super easy. So here's a link. Go check it out. And then they start doing it, and they're like, oh. Yeah, this is way too complicated. Like, I'm going to be scared to death if I put actual money in. And then they just disappear. And they never even stepped into so literally just getting it is always the hardest part of these endeavors, every single time.
I did a post a while back that actually did pretty well, but I was like, $5 get you started. And there was another finance creator that came on there and said, $5 isn't going to do anything for you. I was like, well, $5, what that does is that sets you up. I mean, $5 isn't going to turn to $1 million, but that's going to, you go from being a person that knows absolutely nothing about investing to being a person that has a brokerage account open, that knows how to place an order. I mean, that's the big hurdle is actually just getting started. And so I think
Yeah.
$5
I think that
is
initial
huge.
$5 is possibly the most important investment you ever make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Completely agree.
think the first $5 is critical, and if somebody's willing to to invest $5 to have the experience, I mean, yeah, you've broken the ice, and that really moves the buck forwards in a big way. Because
Huge.
I mean, we're such experiential learners. Even the people that don't call themselves experiential learners, we're all to a degree experiential learners. Brandon, the thing that you brought up about compound interest and the way you described it, Dustin, I think it's cool that y'all brought that up because I've been thinking about those concepts of how people don't notice compound interest. They don't notice compound growth. And I've actually
Mm-hmm.
been thinking about that in terms of investments where I'm trying to flip it. And I'm going, okay, where are spots that people aren't noticing compound growth?
Mm-hmm.
And for example, I mean, the classic one is well, now it's classic already, is the fact that Tesla stayed at one particular area for a real long time, and then it just
Right.
blew the hell up. And when you look at it, one of the things to see there is oh, nobody knows what one more gigafactory means. It's too big to make any sense of
Yeah.
it. One
Mm-hmm.
more gigafactory is a really weird phrase. And I've been trying to look at companies from that perspective of who's grabbing compound growth in a really vague way. Like for me, I was looking at the investors presentation for Palantir, and
Mm-hmm.
their company is so confusing on the surface, and their numbers are so large that I think a lot of people are just automatically tuning it out, like it just doesn't even exist. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if you've ever like experimented with this and ever like looked for investments this way of like, is there a like something that's invisible to a lot of people because of
I
that
got
psychological factor?
I know I got burned by this for years. I mean, one that I always think back to is Amazon, how they were just like growing at just leaps and bounds every single year. But I kept looking at the price to earnings multiple, and it was like 800 or something crazy,
Oh yeah.
And but price to
Mhm.
earnings, you're talking about that's a linear comparison right there, not
Mm.
not factoring in the exponential growth. So I know I don't know how much money I lost by not buying him. I first bought it in 2017, but had I bought it, when I first started looking at it, I mean, people were talking about it and talking about the valuation. That's the first one that always immediately jumps out to me. And then you think about like when Facebook, I think it was Yahoo that tried to buy them for $1 billion, and Zuckerberg said no. I mean, they're growing exponentially with their users. Zuckerberg said no,
Right.
turned it down like in 2010 or something. And that was even before that, I think. But I mean, and of course now they're like a multi-$100 billion. So obviously he was right on that one. But
Yeah, he did okay.
I remember at the time everybody thought Zuckerberg was just a nut job. It's like, how do you turn down $1 billion? You could be set for life, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that played out for him.
Yeah, I'm really curious about investing from that perspective of going, okay, where is my natural psychology gonna not notice the
There's going to be
growth?
opportunities right now. I think depending on how everything plays out with the shutdowns and COVID and the recovery and everything, people just don't know. I mean, some people are going to latch onto trends that they think are going to persist into the future indefinitely, and they're not. I mean, some things are going to go back to normal, and
Right.
some relatively soon future, hopefully. And then other things that we think are going to go back to normal, I'm concerned are going to be the same way forever. And it's just
Yeah.
picking
Yeah.
those trends and knowing what it's going to be.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of that, that's a great segue into something I wanted to talk about. So things have a very high chance of never normal in a lot of sectors. And the problem is we're currently not fully realizing the implication of that market. We're just starting to see big red days right now. So what I want your opinion on is we looking at a artificial bubble right now in the marketplace due to trying to keep up the appearance that we're okay after COVID? Or do you think that this will pass and we'll go back to normal trends?
The question is, what is normal after this? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Both from like the economy and everyday life, but then also, I mean, the Federal Reserve is doing things that are just completely unprecedented that we've never seen before. We don't know how this is all going to play out. I mean, in theory, they can pull all this liquidity out of the system. I mean, they pumped in, trillions and trillions of dollars. You can pull it all out at some point, and interest rates, they call it normalize, go back up at some point. But I don't know when that
Right.
is or what that looks like. And I mean, there's going to be billionaires made off of it if you can figure out the right way to play it. But I don't know.
Yeah,
What should I do?
I'm firmly convinced that there will be more millionaires made in the next 10 years than ever before, and it doesn't even have to do with the fact that, there's the potential for runaway inflation. Like, even taking that out of the equation, there's so many ridiculous opportunities right now.
Oh yeah.
And it all comes back to whether or not you're an asset owner or you're going to be a saver or you're just a spender. I mean, asset owners, you talk about wealth inequality, that's what it is. I mean, you cut the line at people that own real estate, people that own stocks.
Right.
Those are the people that are the richest, the people that, the 40 something % of people that don't own anything, don't have any real estate assets, don't have any financial securities. Those are the ones that are getting left behind. And I think the Federal Reserve has a lot to do with that. I mean, obviously that's going to happen anyways, but the liquidity pump that they've been doing, that's where I think it's been going. It's in the financial markets.
So, in relate to the more personal, I'm going to ask you a real straightforward question. What is money?
Is money?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on what is money? It's interesting because everybody explains it a different way. We all have a slightly different,
Money.
lens on it.
Yeah, that's been a long time since I've thought about that question. To be frank, money is just some means of representing value, some form of, I don't know if I should say currency or not, but some. I don't know. I should have looked at Webster's dictionary before I come.
Oh no, you're good. No, I mean my intention was actually like your impression on it, because it's like, we have the dictionary definitions, but it's interesting how everybody translates it a little bit differently, right?
I think it's some. I'm looking for the right word. Some
And I can come back
Well,
to
it's a
it
piece
if
of
you want.
piece of paper or digital number or something that can be used to represent value within an economy. And I guess is token the right word? Maybe token.
Right.
Some
Yeah,
token.
yeah.
A token.
Sounds good.
They can represent value within an economy.
That's incredibly interesting because when you think about defining money, you think about it in a very how do I say, logical finance kind of way. When I think
Yes.
about money, the way that I describe it is it's more conceptual to me. To me, it's a means to an end through a social contract. That's the end of it. Is the only reason money exists is because you and I will find it very hard to value sheep and cattle at the same rate, except in the cases where we need those from each other. But we don't always same things, and that's not consistent. So to me, money exists as a neutral good that everyone needs for no reason, and because of that, everyone needs it for a reason.
And I, of course, have a totally different conceptualization of it.
So what's yours?
I'm actually
Uh,
interested.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question to ask because everyone does have a slightly different answer. For me, it's sort of leaning on Mises, and sort of leaning on the idea of, it was the the uh, the idea of it being invented to keep track of debt, and the way I think of it is sort
Right.
of an IOU on human action. That's kind of the way I think of it.
Ooh,
It's
that's
a it's a it's a because money itself is useless until people are brought into the equation.
right.
Oh, you. Yeah.
Yeah, so
How
it's
about that?
yeah, it's an interesting thought.
What do
Okay,
you, yeah.
let's go somewhere else. I'm bouncing around today. I like to bounce sometimes.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
hope I'm not
say,
giving y'all whiplash.
no, no, we're good.
Good.
We're in the parking lot learning how to drive right now. We're
All
just,
right.
around the light posts. Mom's yelling at me. Um, one of the things that Dustin's videos that I watched was this idea of kind of just what we were talking about, the seashells on a beach. Hey, there's a limited amount of these. Here, everyone take a few seashells, and we'll use this as our currency. And then someone goes to another part of the island and finds a massive quantity of them that no one knows about. Goes and buys all the hammer, and then you see the repercussion is that, well, now everything starts to get more expensive, right? You see the beginnings of inflation. Now, imagine what happens, and this is my belief right now, when the inverse happens, is that everyone finds the seashells and then just begins to hoard them. And things get cheaper and cheaper. In fact, at the beginning of quarantine, there's a few different research articles that came out last month. I'd have to find them, that talked about how within the first half month to a month, we actually saw inflation in reverse. We saw
Yeah.
deflation of the economy because people
Yeah.
were holding the wealth in fear. That's something we haven't seen in over like 100 years. And that's incredibly interesting how you could devalue your currency in the good way, but it's still bad.
Was
So I
that
wonder. Yeah, go
sorry?
ahead.
It's just because I think that happened in Germany as well.
Yes,
Uh,
if
uh
I believe so.
quite a few decades ago.
Right. It's well, in
And I
American
think
history, it was about 100 years ago, is what I meant to say.
Okay. Yeah.
and I think what you had is there's a concept known as the velocity of money. It's just how fast dollars are moving
Yeah.
around through the economy,
Mhm.
and everybody kind of freaked out all at once. Everything shut
Oh yeah.
down. Economic activity kind of ground to a halt, and so that's what you saw is that when the velocity of money goes down, then that's going to play against inflation.
Well, one of the things that article hit on was that the silent generation is still alive, and they had either lived through the Great Depression or had family members who were directly alive during it for their adulthood. So when they saw this happen, the article specifies like older people, like 80 plus, did not, on average, spend more than $100 that entire month. Literally shut down their lives. That's incredible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think
So either
our
they lived through it or
generation will
had
see
some
something
secondhand.
close. I think, those of us that are in our 20s, 30s, 40s now, in 50, 60 years, when something like this happens again, I wonder what the perception is going to be from our generations having lived through a moment like this.
It's fascinating because I think every generation has their experience, and everybody relies on their experience. I mean, you
Right.
see like the people that are on social media talking about real estate because they've made money in real estate. Had real estate blown up in the last 10 years, they wouldn't be out there pumping, telling everybody to go buy real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Josh, you
Yeah.
did a video on this not too long ago, right? Talking about different segments that had blown up, industrial age and things like that. Wasn't that you?
Let's see. I did one on like questioning how rich people think. Of the idea of like uh sometimes maybe wealth isn't created the way we expect it is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I saw
I'm not
somebody did a
sure.
video about, and you had the gold rush, and then you had the industrial age, and there's been these major events that basically spanned across the generation, and there's been generational opportunities to create wealth in a different asset class, and they're arguing for, I think it was Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies now
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
being the one, but
Right.
I think you're 100% right. I think your experience is what you rely on. Like you can make money in real estate. parents had a couple of rental houses when I was growing up. I had to go work at those. I mean, I had to like paint the living rooms and clean up after the tenants moved out and completely destroyed the place. It was my parents didn't make any money off of them. It was an absolute nightmare. And I remember having to go to work there, and of course, I wasn't getting any benefit from it. And so I can't see myself unless I've got like a really good management team. I don't see myself owning rental properties, even though I know people make millions of dollars that way.
Right. Actually, someone asked a really good question in chat that I want to talk about. Can you talk more about these opportunities you feel people have coming in the future? That is such a good question. So one of the main things that I see, and I think this is obvious from our perspective, but from someone who's not in the financial world, I do not think that this is obvious at all. Robinhood, Webull, Tastyworks, all of these brokerages have made it so incredibly gamified and simple for people to get into the investment market at a beginner's level and then work their way up with their tool set, that I think the possibility for everyone to have their own properly managed 401k is totally feasible. And I think that could become the new norm for like 3 to 4% of Americans, at least, after all of these tools are coming out. And through that system, right, through getting better knowledge of your investments, people are opening themselves up to a new world of, real estate or entrepreneurship, things like that. So I think the biggest thing right now is just the stock market, because this was this metaphysical space that wasn't feasible for the layman. If you didn't have $100,000, you were never gonna, you had a employer-sponsored 401k, you threw in like $40 a week, you never paid attention to it. But now people are looking into it like, oh man, why don't I just handle this? I see people making 20% a year.
Mm-hmm. My concern with all this is it's becoming very democratized. It's definitely gamified with like the Robinhood and those.
Right.
They've moved to a less salient model than what you had before. Robinhood is not a non-for-profit. I mean, they're making money. They're just not charging you anything that you can see.
Right.
So it's not all. I don't think it's all great.
No.
I think a lot of it is good. I mean, they've driven costs down, but
Right.
my concern is that we have a 10 to 15 year period where the annualized returns are 4 per year. I mean, which could happen. You look at Japan, they had a 25-year stretch where they didn't hit all-time highs. I mean, weird things happen even over long periods. And so I worry people are going to get flushed out and something like that. Or we just have like a major crash and a lot of people that have gotten in and, made a quick buck right now get burned by it and then, never want to come back in or take any risk again.
That's another great point. How many people I would love to have a statistical analysis of this. After that first crash about a month ago, how many people on the TikTok scene that were making content just disappeared, never to be seen again?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I bet that'll
It's a
happen.
lot.
About exponential growth, I think it's been around, April, May is when you saw the exponential growth in finance creators on TikTok. Everybody was an expert trader after that.
Yeah, and that's kind of if you don't mind, Josh, that leads right into another question on my sheet.
Go for it.
Dunning-Kruger. God, it's one of my favorite concepts. I love it so much, and that is the perfect example. People get in, they get Robinhood, they go on Wall Street Bets, they find the genius play. From $0 to 10 in a week, guaranteed, can't go wrong. Throwing in $4,000, $5,000, they hit big. They go on TikTok, they go on Instagram. Look at me, I'm Mr. Moneybags, listen to me. Then they realize, holy shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. What is, in your opinion, the best way to realize that you're in the Dunning-Kruger effect, or at least figure out if you're on the track there?
You just got to be humble. I mean, just assume that you don't know anything going into something.
Yeah.
I never approach anything with too much confidence. I think it's primarily a personality trait. I mean, some people, are experts at everything that they touch. You talk about paper trading. I'm actually not a huge fan of paper trading, because I think, for one, you don't trade with fake money the way you're going to trade with real money, and two, you could have beginner's luck, and I'd rather have beginner's luck with real money, and so I'd actually be up instead of have my
Right.
beginner's luck in my paper trading account and then throw more money into my real account thinking that I know what I'm doing and then blow that up.
Right.
I mean, there's benefits to it for sure, but I'm not just not the hugest fan of it. But
Yeah, I couldn't do
yeah,
it.
I don't.
I
I
tried.
think it's just it's I think all these like psychological biases, I think they're super interesting, at least to me. And I think it's a matter of judging them, being aware of them, and just asking yourself if you're falling prey to it at a given time. I don't know that there's a way that you can always say steadfast, I'm not going to fall for the Dunning Kruger.
Right.
I think it can just happen to anybody.
Right.
Yeah, what is it? What's the goal to be less wrong? I think it is.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the goal isn't to be right. The goal is to be less wrong. And if
Mhm.
that's your, you know, way of looking at it, then it's one, it's not so painful when things go awry. But
Right.
two, it orients you towards that like process of like not assuming you have it all, but
Yeah.
moving towards the truth.
Yeah. And that's
And I don't want to go
go ahead.
too far down this road, but that's something that just drives me nuts about the current political environment. I try to follow people that I agree with because they're fun to follow because it feels nice to agree
Mm.
with somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I try to follow a lot of people I completely disagree with, as
Yeah.
long as they're not being too arrogant or
Yeah.
constantly calling me stupid for having the opinions that I have.
Mhm.
But it's gotten to a point. It goes back to media these days. I mean, the way the media is set up, you got to it's all online. Everybody's fighting for attention right now, and that includes
Right.
your media outlets. And so they're taking news that should just be here it is. It's not really that big of a deal, and they have to sensationalize it on either
Right.
side, either make it super scary or super exciting, so
Yeah.
that people will click on it and share it. And then I think that
Right.
just kind of exacerbates through society.
Yeah.
That's why I
I
try to stay out of politics as best I can. I hate it right now.
Right.
I can't remember the I can't remember the interview that I watched, but for some reason I was watching a news interview, and somebody was reporting some good news that had happened, and it was they were interrupted every 10 to 15 seconds with a well yeah but what does this imply, and like every single time the news reporter tried to imply a disaster
Right.
because disasters get attention, right? So
Right.
it was so apparent that it was like a little bit mind bending, like you were getting
Right.
cognitive dissonance from watching it, where this guy was describing something good that had happened, and the reporter was like, "So could this end up in being this disaster or in that disaster?"
Right. Yeah.
and
No,
and it's
and that
yeah.
sensationalized media is so much easier. So, for example, not for any opinion reason, just a state of fact, like Fox News is not labeled as news. The only reason that CNN is labeled as news legally is because they have a few more journalists. But realistically, both of these are primarily entertainment services.
Yeah.
They don't have to tell you the news. They have to tell you whatever they make the most money on. There's no reason or implicit a 24-hour news cycle exists to keep you outraged, regardless of what you believe in, who you're with. That's the point. And this is the same thing with content online. Clickbait works if it keeps you engaged. You know what keeps you engaged more than anything? An opinion you don't like.
Yeah, it's
No,
a
it
tricky
is,
one.
and that gets shares, and it is. And speaking of that, I mean, I'll admit I'm guilty of it too. Like when I'm posting TikToks or something, I'll misspell a word on purpose because I know that that'll get more
Oh yeah. Yeah.
engagement. Or
Right.
we'll put in something
Yep.
a little different or that won't quite make sense, just because. But if you don't, if you just play it by the rule, I mean, by the book, it's going to come off as boring, and
Yeah.
nobody's going to interact
There's
with
so
it.
many times when I've seen comments on one of my videos where somebody they'd comment something along the lines of, "Well, why didn't you explain this part?" And because obviously I can fit everything I have to say about a subject in 1 minute. but but
Right.
you know, there'll be a comment along those lines of like, you know, well, why didn't you factor in this? And the sassy part of my
Yeah.
brain
All the time.
looks at it and responds with, if I would have put that in, you never would have seen it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
Yeah. I
very
mean,
true.
and on a platform like this, I mean, literally every second counts. If you've got a video and you can make it 14 seconds versus 16 seconds, that may be the difference between it getting 1 million views and, you know,
Yeah.
30,000 views. I mean, it's
Exactly.
every second counts, and so you've got to. It's not punchy. It doesn't get
Yeah.
in.
One of
And
my
it,
favorite things is it's called Cunningham's Law. It's a brand new thing, and it literally says the best way to get the right answer on the internet is not to ask the question, it's to post the wrong answer. That is the fastest way to get the right answer. And on TikTok,
So,
how many
I know
times
people do
does
that on.
yeah, how many times does someone comment, "Hey, you got this wrong. Here's this, this, and this," and then the person actually is like, "Oh, you know what? You're actually right. I was completely wrong." Like, it does happen.
it works.
I saw a deal
Um,
on Reddit one time where they said you can ask a question on Reddit and you won't get any responses, but you confidently say something wrong, and people
yeah.
reply with like dissertation saying, "Here's all the sources and why you're wrong
Right.
and everything." It works for
Um,
sure.
Unfortunately, I'm looking at the time, and it looks like we don't have much time left.
I
Um,
can push. I have 15 more minutes than I expected. So
okay.
we are good.
All right. So, I want to ask you, what's a concept you've always wanted to make a video on, but you haven't done yet?
Ooh.
Ooh, I've got a concept that's a really good question. Um, I think I know I've saved one or two of yours because I know there's been a couple of your videos
Ooh.
that I've had like sitting on my idea list.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it goes back to what's going to get views, and if you post
Right.
something, if it's informational and it's good content, but it's not, you know, something that is going to get people's attention, it can be the best content in the world. It's not going to get any views. I mean, what's it matter at that point?
Yeah.
Destroying my life.
I think you had the one about the market's going to crash at some point and people are never going to come back.
Right.
That was
Mm,
one that
yes.
I thought was really well said, and something that I had on my list, and had been able to find the right words to make it worthwhile to post. I don't know. I keep a list of like, I had a list on my phone of probably like 200 ideas, things I pick up in podcasts or books or, you know, years of experience or whatever.
Right.
And then I keep like little sticky notes all over my office. And then I constantly like look through them and try to come up with the way. Like I've been doing these silly skits now, and just because it gets more engagement and I can get the same
And it
concept
makes
across.
sense. The skits actually make a ton of sense because
They're
once again,
great.
going back to experiential learning, it makes a ton of sense to explain something through a skit because it helps, you know, it fires that like human
Like
relationship aspect of
it's
the
like
brain.
it's like a conversation instead of being preached at, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
have the death stare and the monotone voice to get the attention like you do, Josh. But got to pull out any trick I can.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that if you know, this is why educational videos for kids aren't just someone sitting and saying, "You should never try heroin." It doesn't work, you know? If you make it more
It doesn't work.
relatable to the everyday
Yeah.
experience, you're going to get much better results. Especially with TikTok.
Mhm.
TikTok, all of us know that a majority of the people watching us are young adults or younger. So it's really important to try to get these videos created in a way that speaks to their life experience up until this point. Like, how many people watch a video like mine? Like, I do a lot of really educational 1 minute cram sessions, and the amount of comments I get from people just dismissing the whole thing by saying, "Ah, shit, I'm 16." It's like, no, I need to step back, right? There is a way for you to get into this. And I forget that not everyone knows what I know from my life experience, that there are custodial and guardian accounts.
That's what's tough is how high level do you go and how deep do you go? I mean, one thing that I have to constantly remind myself is basically once you learn something and it becomes obvious to you, immediately assume that everybody else knows it
Yeah.
like then too. And so like you were talking about that that marketing video that I did about the cups.
Right.
Literally when I made that video in my drafts for a few days, I didn't have anything to post that night. I showed it to my wife. I said, this is stupid. Nobody's gonna watch this. Everybody already knows this. She said, just post it, leave it up for an hour, see what happens, and maybe it'll do something. So it's like, okay, so I posted it, and then it ends up getting like 6 or 7 million views, which just like shocked me because I almost deleted it. But yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, I think
the number of gems that have been deleted on this planet because of that exact instinct that you just described, God,
too many.
I showed it to my wife before I deleted it. I said, I'm just going to get rid of this. And she said, no, just post it, see what happens. But I think that the good thing about both of your accounts is that, you know, you get your own unique style. Like Brandon, I mean, your quality is everything else is just, you know, done on the phone. And so you've got, when it comes in, it's your video. And obviously, Josh, you've got your deal that you do. I think it's good. If you're not going to be flashy or do something, you know, I shouldn't say super creative. I don't know what the right word is, but something that's like clickbaity, I guess.
Yeah, you're neat.
Well, I think what you're describing is just doing your thing, doing the thing that you can manage well. It's really weird. You know, a lot of people now are asking me about, you know, how to make stuff, how to make something that's good, how to make the right thing, and you know, I always come back to production over perfection. In the idea of figure out how to make a lot of stuff instead of really good stuff, because the idea is when you go to make things, you don't know what you want to make. You think you do, but you don't have enough skills to actually know what you want to make. So if you go make a lot of things, then you'll have some experience in making things, and then you turn yourself into the production machine, and once you're the production machine, you can start steering it in directions. Like, you've made so many videos now that you have a better idea of what you want to make next as a result, and it's starting to go in certain stylistic directions, and it's becoming your thing. And I go back to that over and over again. I think it's so valuable to, it's a silly statement, but just to simply make a lot of things. I think it's incredibly useful.
Especially early on. I mean, you've got to, my first handful of videos was just me recording a screen, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And so, yeah, you definitely evolve. And, you know, I always struggle between the quantity versus quality aspect. But like I said, I mean, you never know what's going to hit. I mean, there's an account, John Finance, that he'd been posting for months and months, and then posted one day he went from like, he had like 70,000 followers, and all of a sudden he had 800,000 followers on one video. It just blew up. And so, I mean, you never know when something like that's going to happen. And his video was, I mean, it was good, but it was just like, you know, hey, if you're 18 and you want to have good credit, you probably need to get a credit card.
Right.
Follow me for more.
Yeah.
And that's what did it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
One of the unexpected gems of my channel wasn't one of my best performing videos, but I never expected it, was a conversation me and Josh were having about the differences in the types of IRAs that you can open, right? A traditional versus a Roth. And the idea that me and him both had this perception of
this was something I didn't know.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so, you know, one of these is taxed before, one of these is taxed after. So I'll do the one that gets taxed before so that I don't have to worry about it when I, you know, take it out later in life. But the thing we realized was, well, if we don't pay the taxes until we get to the end of our life when we're ready to pull that out, we pay in that tax bracket. We crunched the numbers. We found out that we made $200,000 more on that specific example almost every time. There's like very few situations where that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I mean, that's traditionally been the benefit is you're taxed at a lower rate, presumably at the time of retirement. I still do a Roth though, because you don't know what taxes are going to be in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially with our
Totally.
current spending and debt situation, they're probably going to be higher, but I mean, we don't know for sure. But
Right.
my deal is when I get to retirement, I want to see a number and say, that's my number. I've got it free and clear, But even though when I've run the numbers on my own finances, traditional works out by like, a couple $100,000 better that way too.
Yeah, I mean the psychology of it is a big deal for sure. I think the thing that bothered me the most was that, I mean, I've read a pretty good number of personal finance books at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
I've read quite a few, and it amazed me that they weren't in any of the ones that I read, and 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 looking at it, I mean, I'm not gonna immediately say that this is what it was, but I mean, it looked like it was a mistake of the authors who wrote the book had a lot of money. And if you have a lot of money, the Roth IRA is absolutely the right choice.
Yep.
And it's like these are personal finance books that are written for people that are often at a slightly lower income. And it's like that's some useful information for some people, I think. I never spotted it. It blew me away.
I mean, it's like most things. It's nuanced. Everybody tries to go for a single answer, and I see it all the time. I get the question Roth or traditional, and I always try to point people towards a calculator. Run the numbers yourself and see, because there's calculators that'll like extrapolate, retirement taxes too.
Yes.
But I see that from other creators. I mean, not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but they'll always immediately say Roth's better, but.
Yeah, and I would have said Roth.
I would have
until our we had the conversation. Yeah,
and you're talking about, I know a couple $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but ultimately we're talking about extrapolated returns and everything. It's really not usually that much difference. No. And so I think unless you got a unique situation, it's probably not going to matter that much. That's why I trend towards Roth, just because I want to know what I have and not have to worry about future taxes and everything when I'm 65.
Right.
But I mean, traditional gets a better rap, I think.
Now, I don't know if you've gone in this direction, so if you haven't, then just stop me. But I'm curious if you have any thoughts on cryptocurrency.
So I got some like Bitcoin and some Ethereum, like a small amount. I bought some years ago. I've got like a small gain in it, but it's damn hard. I mean, I don't get the use case, and people. I understand the value, or I can see value in like the blockchain, but in terms of being a currency, it maybe at some point, but I don't see it with Bitcoin right now.
Right.
I mean, I consider myself pretty tech savvy and good with money and things, and it was hard for me, and I was worried about truncating a X off the end of a 50 character string in order and my money's gone forever and all that. And so I think there's value in blockchain. Something valuable will come out of it, I'm sure. I've got a very small amount of it, just as kind of like a dummy insurance policy in case I'm completely wrong and it goes to $1 million or something.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same experience. My issue with cryptocurrency is that it doesn't work. And it's not because it doesn't work, but it's because if you look at the mission statement of what it's meant to be, it has completely failed. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies died for me in my head in March. If this is supposed to be a deregulated currency, why the hell did it drop in the middle of a worldwide financial crisis? Because it's regulated. It's in the market. It acts the exact same way. So the other problem is that right now it's an investment vessel. Who the fuck is using Bitcoin for purchases?
I mean, you're worried you're going to be the guy that bought the pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin.
Well, right.
And so nobody uses it. That's the
nobody
deal.
wants to be that person.
I
don't know who's
on the flip side, a couple of things come to mind. One is in terms of it the is it a correlated asset type of conversation where, why did it crash uh, when everything else crashed? For me, that's I mean, I probably answer that very differently. But to me, it seems like a human problem, not a. It's correlated because it's
Sure.
humans. So it's like who is over leveraged in a crash? Well, it's people that are probably have a lot of money and a lot of different assets. And
Right.
okay, so you've got hedge funds that
Sell what you want to. You sell what you have.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like the hedge fund is over leveraged, and they have a requirement to deal with that.
Right.
Like there's no getting out of dealing with that situation. So it's like, okay, well, we've got some Bitcoin, so we'll go sell it and deal with this. So to me, it seems like just the same people that are in the stock market game are also in the crypto game. So to me, that's
Oh,
where the
right.
correlation is.
Well,
Um,
exactly, and
Well, and
that's why I see the two of them as inextricably linked. I think that they're
but
caught in that.
uh, but
at the
I
same time, it's one data point too. It's
Sure.
not.
yeah
I mean, it's
Yeah.
one event.
And
yeah
it was a
And I've
big
heard the
one
argument
too,
that
so
it
it very well could be the outlier.
could.
could
Yep.
be
And
yeah
and I've heard the argument before that it's not it's non-correlated. It's not negatively correlated. So it not
Sure.
doesn't necessarily go up when the stock market goes down. It's just not correlated, and they just happen to move the same way at the same time.
Right.
I
yeah.
don't know.
The parts that do make sense to me are the concept of the store of value.
Yes.
That does make sense to me.
Yeah.
The potential for a gold replacement. And
Mhm.
one of the reasons why it makes sense to me is actually for like why I can excuse that in my mind, even though there's still some like complications around it. Is what you said earlier was it doesn't work, and my
Mhm.
immediate response in my mind was, well, money doesn't work.
Right. Right.
Like all of this stuff is to some degree
Mhm.
arbitrary and based on human decision.
Right.
And I think Bitcoin could work enough
Yeah.
that I think it could become a phenomenal store of value. And
See
Well,
that
and not
in my
only that,
opinion,
I
I
think
think it is going in that direction.
it's the safest way history has ever made to store wealth. It is the safest bank of wealth in terms of literal safety of wealth. It is peer to peer, completely corroborated by you, by yourself, by your code. You mine it, you follow it. It's completely anonymous unless you link it, right? That might be the way of the future for finance, but I don't know.
And at the same time, I think Dustin's totally right. It's cantankerous and awkward, and I think
That's
you're right,
funny.
Brandon, that it broke very quickly.
Right.
At the same time, uh, uh, people function remarkably well in dysfunction.
Right.
that's
Yep.
why I trend towards. I've never been a. I kind of go back to the old Buffett rule of things that produce value, and so
Yeah,
like owning businesses. He's never been a
Right.
fan of gold, and he kind of left me on an island over here by myself because he went and bought gold miners. But he's never been a fan of gold. Doesn't like Bitcoin because they don't do anything. There's no inherent
yeah,
value. Bitcoin is
Right.
worth something just because a bunch of people kind of
Maybe.
agree that it's worth something.
Right.
But businesses, if you got a farm, then you can grow vegetables on it and produce things that you can eat. If you have a business, it generates cash flow. And so that's always kind of when you're talking about inflation hedge, store of value, as long as you have a business that's growing and producing value in the economy, I would prefer to put my money there as opposed to Bitcoin or gold. That said,
yeah,
I do have a little bit of Bitcoin because I might, there's some really smart people smarter than me that own Bitcoin. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
what
With
it
I
the
is.
still
with
have a small reserve.
yeah with the disclaimer of I actually am pretty heavily invested in Bitcoin. I also am drawn to
Talking your book, huh?
the income producing assets. What did you say?
You're talking your book, I hear.
I still missed it.
I
The
saying you're
audio
pumping
cut
your own
out. I'm
assets.
sorry.
You're pumping your own assets.
You
is
want
what
everyone to
Oh.
buy in.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Come on, guys. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think that
Everybody buy
long-
Dogecoin.
not again. I think long term Bitcoin, so long as it sticks through the next 10 years, right? It's got 10 years so far. If it does another 10 years, I think it's in the clear, right? I think it's going to stick around for the rest of our lives without a doubt. I think what the biggest paradigm shift for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is going to be is getting wide acceptance in the marketplace, right? I can walk in anywhere and they will accept it. And then once that's possible, it needs to be tied to actual assets somehow. Exactly what we were talking to. I need to be able to use my Bitcoin to make me money as opposed to just using it to hope it makes me money because it's an investment. It has to let me buy a business or let me buy a house or let me buy a car. Like it has to be tied to the real world.
To transition to a real currency, I think, if it's going to be worth anything.
Yep.
Well, I think we're coming close to an end here.
Yes, we
I
are.
want to ask you, what do you want to do next? What are some of Dustin's hopes and dreams? What are you aiming towards at the moment?
So, I'm kind of weird. I don't like to put my goals out there. I've
Got
read
it.
research, and I've always
Got
been
it.
like this. I like to work in silence and then present a finished product.
Beautiful.
And so that's why when I started, I didn't use Logical Finance. I didn't use my real name on Logical Finance. I didn't even show my face for a little bit because if it just completely blew up and didn't do anything, I was going to delete all my accounts and never tell anybody I did it.
Yeah.
And so I've got some plans. I think there's areas of need just in general, financial knowledge. And I don't know if that's, the high school route. People always blame schools in terms of, nobody having personal finance knowledge. I think there's just a huge need for, education of the average person. And I've been reading a lot of research on that, what works, what doesn't work. I don't know if something comes there, and then I've got, a few other things in my back pocket that maybe I'll see the light of day.
All right, wonderful. Well, we're all looking forward to it, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where do you want to steer people? Where do you want people to check you out?
So if you want to get the book, Winning with Money, you can just type that in Amazon, Kindle,
It's
or
in the chat already. Just sent it.
paperback
Perfect.
copy there. That's like 80 to 90% of my thoughts on personal finance, and then I'd like step-by-step guide on how to get your finances in order, and basic guide to investing. And then I'm posting content on TikTok about 5 or 6 days a week at Logical Finance, on YouTube once or twice a week, and then try to get on Instagram once or twice a week. So Logical Finance on all those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Brandon, where do you want to steer people?
Oh, well, everyone, I know we were talking about paper trading earlier, and there's nothing more I love than paper trading with my sponsor, Webull. God, I love it. So if you go to branddominoes.com/Webull, you can get signed up through my affiliate link. You'll get a free stock just for signing up, and then you'll get 2 additional if you put $100 in. I originally used Thinkorswim to paper trade. I used TD Ameritrade's platform when I was younger. But then when Webull started showing off their paper trading, oh my God, if you guys haven't actually looked at it, it's incredibly easy to do it. And I love how it's formatted. That is genuine, non-sponsor shit. I really like that. But that's my info. Go ahead, branddominoes.com/Webull. What about you, Josh? What do you got?
Just check out the coaching below. There's a link if you want to talk to me. If you want to explore existential dilemmas, I'm your guy.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Well, once
okay.
again, Dustin, thank you so much for being on. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you.
I had a ton of fun. I can't believe it's already been an hour plus.
Yeah, this really
I
flew.
know.
I enjoyed